The fastest way to get into tech, especially if you're non-technical, is to build your own tech company. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how will I build a tech company when I am not technical? Remember, I said fastest, not necessarily easiest, because as anything in life, there may be hoops and hurdles that you need to jump through in order to achieve something. But in this video, I'm going to be breaking down how you can become a tech startup founder with no technical experience. Now, if you're coming to my channel for the very first time, I have made a couple of videos about how to transition into tech, but more for people who want the corporate 9-to-5 role within a tech company. Today, we're going to be focusing on people who want to start their own tech company, but don't have the technical background that they need to start. Now, one of the reasons I said the fastest way to transition into tech is by building your own tech company is because one of the biggest challenges that people face when trying to get into tech is the process of getting validated to even get into tech in the first place. And this process of validation includes the interview stage. So you have to go through tech interviews, which I can tell you they're not the easiest of things to go through. They comprise of multiple stages where they will test your skill sets, your experiences, they'll give you case studies. And this process can be overwhelming for a lot of people and can make a lot of people feel like they're not good enough to actually transition into tech. Which is why I think that skipping that validation process and just starting your own tech company is actually the fastest way to get into tech. Now, like I said earlier, even though this is the fastest way, it might not be the easiest way for people who are non-technical to actually get into tech. Running a tech company as a non-technical founder is going to bring its own challenges. And I can tell you this because I was one myself. I ran multiple fintech startups without being a technical person. And I can tell you how I did it and some of the pitfalls that you can avoid along the way. Now, as we start in any business, you need to think about the idea. What's the business idea and how do you want to use technology to solve it? What value are you bringing to the table? My advice to anyone who is non-technical is try and pick an idea in an area that you're actually knowledgeable about. It will be a bit catastrophic for you not to have the technical background and not have a bit of domain knowledge about the thing that you're trying to build. So I would say pick an idea in an area that you have domain knowledge. So at least make sure that you are somewhat of a subject matter expert in the field that you're trying to get into. And then we can now think about how to figure out the technical side of things, because I believe it's going to be easier for you to figure out the technical side when you understand the business domain. Most non-technical founders that I know have expertise either in the subject area or in marketing and sales, because sales and marketing actually gives you a lot of insights into how the product works, how it makes money, what people are actually looking for. And it's important that if you're non-technical, that you have some sort of knowledge in this area. Once you've picked the business idea or the problem you want to solve with technology, then you now have to think about how are you going to fund this idea? Now, understanding how much money you have or how you're going to fund this business idea is extremely critical, because it's not only going to help you to figure out how much risk you should be taking, but also how you can potentially find technical partners or technical clients that can help you build your idea. Now, I can tell you as someone who's bootstrapped a tech company in the past that your mindset is going to be very different, and the strategies you're going to be thinking about is going to also be very different from someone who's able to raise funding to run their tech company. When you're bootstrapping, it's a different ball game from when you're using other people's money. When you have a lot of money to play around with, it is actually easier. But then the process of getting other people's money also depends on your ability to convince them of so many things. And one of the strategies that you may be thinking about if you're thinking about bootstrapping, for example, may be that you may want to build a prototype of your product or validate the business idea in some way that you can show that there is demand and there's traction for the product, and then use that to convince potential investors to invest in your business. So you use your funding in the beginning to validate the idea and then use the result of that to go and convince investors. Another thing you might be thinking about is finding a technical founder or a technical partner that can help you in building the first version of your product as well. These are ways that you can maybe think about getting yourself off the ground. Another way you may be thinking about this is maybe building the platform yourself with a no-code tool. And some of these no-code platforms may even allow you to host your application on their platform as well. These are some of the ways that you might be thinking as someone who's bootstrapping, as opposed to someone who has investor funds and then they're able to attract a lot of good talent to come and help them to build their software. I can tell you that as a non-technical founder, your biggest challenges will be around talent. And I've grouped this into 4 major areas that you need to look out for and make sure that you find some sort of solution around these 4 areas. The first one is about finding technical talents. Now, how do you find technical talents when you yourself, you're not technical? Now, you can find technical talents on platforms like Fiverr or Upwork. On these platforms, you may be able to find software developers who can help you to build your apps. You will see people with specializations in maybe building mobile apps or building websites or building web platforms, or even maybe drill down into specific niches that you may be building for, like people who may be specialized in building prop tech platforms, health tech platforms, fintech platforms, and you may find some of these people on these platforms. You may also think about outsourcing the building of your platform to agencies who already have in-house developers who can help you to build your platform. So you just outsource the contract and then get them to help you build your app. Now, the challenge with these first 2 methods of finding talents is that it's going to require you to almost know every single detail of what you're trying to build, because that is how most of these people are going to come up with how much it's going to cost you to build your platform. Because what will usually happen is that if you start to come up with additional features that wasn't in the initial scope of work, you may need to pay more money to these developers to help you get these additional features built. And this is how things get more expensive. Another challenge that you may have because you don't have the technical knowledge is that you will be relying on the expertise of the people that you hire to also recommend the best tech stack to build your platforms. So they have the freedom to choose the programming language that they use to build your platform. Whether or not that is the best tech stack to build your platform and manage it in the future, you probably wouldn't even know that. And those are some of the challenges that you may face. There may be some good agencies that you may be able to find online that may be able to recommend the options for you, but since you don't even really know, you just have to trust them. For some others, they rely on the reviews the technical talents have on the freelance websites like Fiverr and Upwork. So you don't want to really experiment with people who haven't done any projects and don't have any form of reviews on what they can do. You want to increase your odds of maybe picking people who have done this before by really looking at the reviews on some of these websites, or review some of the reviews about the agencies that you may be hiring. So the next challenge around talent is how to manage these talents even when you hire them. One of the biggest challenges that non-technical founders have faced in the past is that their projects get abandoned and they have no idea where their codes are sitting, how to access it, to even give another talent a chance to help them to continue. Sometimes some of these people leave everything to the tech talents that they have, just thinking, hey, I'm not technical, therefore I don't want to know anything about these things. Now, in as much as you're not technical, there are a few things that I would recommend that you actually do. One of it is that you have a GitHub account or a repository that your codes can be stored, and you have admin access to that place, so that as your developers, whether in-house or outsourced, as they're coding, the codes are being stored in this repository. So you need some sort of source code management structure. You don't need to know how to code. You just need to be able to access where your code is. Just in case your talents decide to up and leave and abandon your project, you can still access the codes and then get someone else to continue to builds the product for you. Another thing you can do by having admin rights to where your source code is that if you're beginning to suspect foul play, you can decide to remove access of these tech talents from accessing your source codes. If you have admin rights, you can give the developers developer rights or developer access, and you have the admin rights to remove them if you're suspecting foul play. Another reason why this is also good is that you can hire somebody independently, or even maybe the people that you're working with, to help you automate your backup in another repository. So as they're putting the codes in your primary repository, you have a backup somewhere as well, that you are the one that has the sole right to access that. Now, people have gotten their hands burnt in the past from their developers getting upset about something and then deleting their source code entirely and just leaving the founders in a position where they have to start all over again, where they have wasted money, they've wasted energy. But if you have access or a backup somewhere, you can then get someone else to access the backup and then continue to build from there. So it's not a total loss. Another way you want to be thinking about managing this talent is you want to be close to the products. Now, one of the mistakes that I've seen non-technical founders make is that they allow the design of the product to be developer driven, which is why I mentioned earlier that it would be nice for you to pick an idea in an area that you understand fully. And then when you're the one in charge of the product, where you're the one that is determining the outcome that you want with a specific feature, how it should work, and you're the one defining that, you understand the client, you understand the pain points, you understand the right outcome that you want with every feature in your application, and you can define that to the developer in a way that if the thing is not working that way, one, you're able to know. Number two is that when you leave less room for ambiguity and the developers know exactly what to do, they might even be able to come up with the best way to implement the feature in a way that is going to work best for you. Another reason it's important for you to be close to the product is that it can help you to be agile. So you understand the product, you understand the user journey, and it can help you to determine the most important features for you to build incrementally. So if you know that certain features are not important, you can direct your developers in a way to focus on the more important things that can help you to get to the market much faster. But what if you want to hire in-house developers? How can you verify that these people are actually as good as they say they are on their CV, especially since you don't even know the first thing about coding? One of the things that maybe you can do is maybe hire a technical advisor, so someone that can help you to vet the developers during the interview process and help you, analyze their skill sets. Another way you can think about this, if you cannot afford to hire a technical advisor, is to maybe think about how you can test the developers. One of the ways you can do this is by giving the developers some task in a way that it is technical, but it is also something that you can check, and as a business person, you can actually vet if this is working. One of the things that I would do is that I would give the developers that I'm trying to hire 1 or 2 pages of critical features in the designs that are already available, and then give it to them to code. I will give them a brief describing what those pages are meant to do, and I will ask them to bring those pages to life. Even though I'm not technical, I'm able to see, one, is this thing working the way it's meant to work? If they've skipped something or if they've done something in a way that it just doesn't make sense to the user journey. Another thing you can do even with those tasks is that sometimes you can leave out some information that leaves room for ambiguity, and then you see the developers that would come to you and ask you questions to clarify what they need to do. It's not just about the skill sets that they have. You also want to check, are they able to ask the right questions when they're not clear? Are they able to think critically about things that may be missing, or how to even solve the problem better? These are things that you don't have to be technical to figure out, but when you have the domain knowledge and understand the user journey and pain points, it'll be easier for you to identify and verify the talents that you're trying to hire. Last thing you want to think about is how you want to protect yourself and your company and your assets. One of the way you can do this is by one, maybe having a technical co-founder, so someone who is technical on your team and is also interested in helping you build this company and can also help you to maybe find the right kind of talents or help you to manage the technical talents that you may be hiring. And these are some of the things that your technical co-founder can help you to do. The other thing I mentioned earlier is that you want to have access to all the passwords and passcodes to access your assets. As a tech company, your biggest asset and your most important asset is your software. And it's very important that even though you're not technical, but you have access to it. So with this, you're able to remove access, you're able to assign access, and have backup access to your codes, and also ensure continuity if your developers drop your project midway. Another thing you want to think about is to make sure that as part of your structure, that you ensure that your developers are documenting the architecture of what they're building. Now, one of the challenges that tech companies face when they are moving from developer to developer is the process of handing off the project. If the codes are not well documented, the new developer may not understand the context or the rationale behind why the initial developer has decided to implement something in a specific way. These are some of the things that you can implement as a non-technical person trying to build a tech startup. Now, I know that some of these things might sound a bit overwhelming, but I can tell you it is possible, it is doable. There are so many non-technical founders who have started tech companies. Airbnb, for example, founders of Airbnb were non-technical founders, and there's so many other big tech platforms out there that were founded by non-technical founders. Like I said earlier, you can decide to do it solo or find a technical person to go along the journey with you. Either ways, I just want you to know that it is possible. Like I said earlier, you're not interviewing for this position, so the barrier to entry is actually lower. All you have to figure out is how you're going to be building your tech platform and also managing it, and also making sure that you have the right talent behind your platform. Anyways, I hope this content has been very helpful. If you've enjoyed this content, you know what to do. Make sure you subscribe and share, and I will see you next time. Bye.